Welcome back to our channel for another deep dive into the dramatic world of Los Angeles fashion and family betrayal. Today is a beautiful day to unpack the latest explosive twists that are about to shake the very foundations of Forrester Creations. Grab your favorite beverage and settle in, because the familial battle lines have just been redrawn in the most shocking way imaginable. The gilded halls of Forrester Creations have always been a battleground for power, legacy, and family loyalty, but the atmosphere has never been as heavily charged as it is right now. Brooke Logan Forrester had just achieved what many would have considered an absolute miracle. After days of relentless tension, emotional pleas, and strategic maneuvering, she had finally managed to break through the formidable walls of Ridge Forrester's stubbornness. With tears of genuine passion in her eyes and a fierce maternal protectiveness driving her every word, Brooke had successfully convinced Ridge to officially restore the hope for the future line. It was a triumph of staggering proportions, a massive victory that Brooke believed would finally bring peace to her daughter's turbulent professional life and secure her rightful place within the family empire. Walking away from the executive suite, Brooke felt an overwhelming sense of vindication and relief washing over her. Her heart swelled with pride as she thought about the immense talent and dedication her daughter possessed. Brooke had staked her own personal honor, her pristine reputation, and even the harmony of her fragile marriage on this very moment. She had stood toe-to-toe with Steffy Forrester Finnegan's relentless tyranny, defending Hope's loyalty and value to the company with every fiber of her being. Brooke had promised Ridge that Hope was the future of their legacy, that she was deeply committed to the Forrester name, and that abandoning her visionary line would be a catastrophic mistake for the business. Eager to share this monumental news, Brooke practically floated down the luxurious corridors toward the design office. She could already picture the radiant smile that would break across Hope's face, the tears of joy, and the tight embrace they would share as they celebrated this hard-fought victory. Brooke imagined that this news would instantly erase the weeks of anxiety and despair that had plagued her daughter. She approached the slightly ajar door of the office, her hand reaching out to push it open and announce the triumphant return of Hope for the future. But before her fingers could even graze the polished wood, the sound of Hope's hushed, urgent voice drifting through the cracks stopped Brooke dead in her tracks. The tone of Hope's voice was completely wrong for someone simply working on sketches or consulting with a colleague. It was steeped in secrecy, laced with a nervous energy that instantly triggered Brooke's maternal instincts. Leaning closer to the opening, Brooke held her breath, her heart beginning to hammer a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She listened intently, trying to decipher the context of the conversation. Through the narrow gap, she heard Hope explicitly mention Katie's name. Then, the words that followed struck Brooke with the devastating force of a physical blow, completely shattering the triumphant reality she had been living in just moments prior. Hope was confirming, in no uncertain terms, that she had officially signed the contract with Logan. The words hung in the air, toxic and undeniable. Brooke stood frozen in the hallway, her mind struggling to process the magnitude of what she had just overheard. The blood drained from her face, leaving her pale and trembling. Hope had not just considered an offer. She had not just entertained a conversation with Katie. She had put pen to paper. She had legally bound herself to a rival fashion house. In that agonizing fraction of a second, the miraculous victory Brooke had just secured with Ridge turned to absolute ash in her mouth. The immediate realization of what this meant sent Brooke into a spiraling state of sheer panic. In the eyes of the Forrester family, loyalty was not just a preference, it was an absolute mandate. By secretly signing with Logan while still officially under the Forrester roof, Hope had just transformed herself into the ultimate traitor. Brooke could already hear the vicious, vindicated gloating that would pour from Steffy's lips. Steffy had suspected Hope of harboring secrets, had accused her of being disloyal, and had actively tried to push her out. Now Hope had handed Steffy the perfect, undeniable ammunition to destroy her permanently. But the terror gripping Brooke's soul went far deeper than Steffy's inevitable wrath. It was the terrifying implication for her own marriage that made it difficult for Brooke to draw breath. She had just looked Ridge directly in the eyes and vouched for Hope's unwavering dedication to Forrester Creations. She had manipulated his emotions, leveraged their love, and sworn on her own honor that Hope was completely committed to their family legacy. When Ridge inevitably discovered that Hope had already defected to Katie's company at the exact moment Brooke was begging for her line to be restored, he would view it as a coordinated, malicious deception. He would believe that Brooke had played him for a fool. As the paralyzing shock began to recede, it was rapidly replaced by a searing, blinding anger. This fury was not entirely directed at her daughter, whose desperation Brooke could somewhat understand, but at the woman on the other end of that phone call, Katie Logan, her own flesh and blood. Her sister. In Brooke's mind, the narrative instantly shifted. Katie was no longer just a business rival. She was a ruthless, opportunistic predator who had deliberately preyed upon Hope's vulnerabilities. Katie knew exactly how much hope for the future meant to Brooke, and she knew the delicate political warfare Brooke was waging against Steffy. Yet, Katie had chosen to strike in the shadows. The accusation of a profound, unforgivable backstabbing began to echo loudly in Brooke's mind. How could Katie do this? How could she orchestrate such a deceitful poaching of her own niece, fully aware of the catastrophic collateral damage it would cause to Brooke's life and marriage? The relationship between the Logan sisters had weathered countless storms over the decades, surviving romantic rivalries and corporate disputes, but this felt entirely different. This felt like a calculated, malicious strike at Brooke's maternal heart and her standing within the Forrester dynasty. Katie had weaponized Hope to elevate her own fashion house, completely disregarding the destruction she was leaving in her wake. Brooke's hands balled into tight fists at her sides as she imagined the confrontation that was now inevitable. The sisterly bond that had once been their greatest strength was fracturing violently with every passing second. Brooke knew she was going to tear into Katie with a ferocity she had rarely unleashed. She would accuse her sister of the ultimate betrayal, of acting with a level of deceit that rivaled their worst enemies. Katie had crossed a sacred line, manipulating a young woman's career crisis to score a massive victory for Logan, leaving Brooke to face the devastating fallout at Forrester Creations alone. Yet, beneath the raging inferno of her anger toward Katie, the cold, hard reality of the ticking clock demanded Brooke's immediate attention. Confronting Katie would satisfy her emotional outrage, but it would not solve the imminent disaster looming over her head. Ridge was currently sitting in his office, likely drafting the official announcement of the restoration of Hope for the future. Steffy was lurking somewhere in the building, ready to pounce on any sign of weakness. If the news of this signed contract leaked before Brooke could contain it, the explosion would be catastrophic. The Forrester family would unite in their absolute condemnation of Hope, and Brooke would be caught in the crossfire, branded as an accomplice to the betrayal. A desperate, frantic mission began to crystallize in Brooke's mind. She could not let Ridge find out about this bitter truth. Not yet. She needed time, and more importantly, she needed a way to undo the damage. Brooke's mind raced through a chaotic whirlwind of potential solutions. Could she burst into the office right now and demand that Hope tear up the document? Could a contract be nullified if it hadn't been officially processed? Could she threaten Katie with legal action or public exposure to force her to release Hope from the agreement? The stakes had never been higher, and Brooke was entirely willing to cross whatever ethical or legal boundaries were necessary to protect her daughter and her marriage. The irony of the situation was a bitter pill to swallow. Brooke had spent her entire morning fighting a war against Steffy to save Hope's career, only to discover that the career she was fighting to save no longer belonged to Forrester Creations. She was defending a ghost. Hope had already moved on, secretly aligning herself with Deke Sharp and the Logan brand, effectively severing her ties to the legacy Brooke had bled to build for her. The profound sense of isolation Brooke felt in that hallway was suffocating. She was entirely alone in this knowledge, bearing the crushing weight of a secret that possessed the power to destroy multiple families. Brooke knew she had to compose herself. She could not storm into the office unhinged and hysterical. She needed to be calculated, precise, and ruthlessly effective. She took a deep, shuddering breath, smoothing the invisible wrinkles from her elegant dress, forcing her features into a mask of calm determination. She would have to play a dangerous game of emotional chess with her own daughter, delicately extracting the details of the contract without revealing the full extent of the panic consuming her. She had to make Hope understand the catastrophic consequences of this defection, not just for her career, but for the entire family structure. As she stood outside that door, Brooke Logan Forrester transformed from a triumphant mother into a desperate warrior fighting a war on two fronts. On one side, she had to manage the volatile, suspicious nature of Steffy and the unwavering loyalty of Ridge. On the other side, she had to wage a bitter, personal battle against her own sister, Katie, to reclaim her daughter's professional soul. The signed contract was a ticking time bomb hidden beneath the floorboards of Forrester Creations, and Brooke was the only one who could hear the countdown. She had to find a way to cut the wire, to cancel the agreement, and to rewrite the narrative before the explosion tore their lives apart forever. The days ahead would undoubtedly be filled with tears, screaming matches, and shattered alliances. The Logan sisters would face a reckoning unlike any they had experienced before, fueled by accusations of betrayal and selfish ambition. But in this singular, agonizing moment, Brooke's only objective was survival. She reached out once more, her hand trembling slightly as it made contact with the cool metal of the door handle. She pushed it open, stepping into the room to face her daughter, carrying the heavy, unbearable knowledge that the war for Hope's future had not just ended, it had only just begun in the most treacherous way possible.